Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji, for the prayers. Now, yes, please continue with this screen. Yes, Sam Prabhu.
Okay. In every field of activity, body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the super soul. The super soul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Super soul is the controller of both the fields of activity and the finite enjoyer, that is, individual soul. Krishna says, I am also the knower, not the individual knower of the body, but the super knower, Paramatma, super soul, in every individual body. The individual soul is a knower of his body. Of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. Analogy. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Hare
Thank you, Mataji.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank
So,
you, Prabhuji.
as we just now mentioned, that field of active body, there are two souls, the individual soul and super soul. We know within our heart, there is a soul and the super soul. Super soul, sorry. In fact, both are transcendental, part and parcel of Lord, but the nature of soul and super soul is different because super soul is individual and super soul is representative of Lord Krishna, expansion of Krishna, whereas individual soul is also expansion, but it is subject to three modes of material nature. That is why it is called fallible, and super soul is infallible. It is Bibhu and this is Anu. We know the size of the soul is very, very small. Hare Krishna. Am I audible now? The screen is visible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sorry, there was some problem. So, as we mentioned, there are two souls, super soul and super soul. There are two knowers, the supreme knower and the individual knower. There are two fields, field of individual person, or this is called individual field of activity, and there are multiple fields of which knower is Supreme Personality of Godhead, present as the expansion in the form of super soul or Paramatma in our heart. So he knows everything, but now this is Goloka Vrindavan chart. It's not very, very elaborate. We will not discuss, but Vedic cosmology says that Goloka Vrindavana or Supreme Personality of Godhead abode is the highest of all the planets. We'll come to it when it is discussed. Yes. So, yes, Mataji, can continue here.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, present as the super soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies of all the various species of life. Supreme Proprietor, super knower of all bodies. Kshetrani hi sharirani bijam chapi shubha shubha tani tvitti sa yogatma tatah kshetrajna uchyate.
So we have just now covered this point that Supreme Personality of Godhead present in the heart of each living entity through a plenary expansion is Super Soul or Paramatma. He knows about all the bodies because he is present in each living body, each living entity's heart, whereas the individual soul is present in the heart of an individual person only. So Super soul knows about all the bodies. Right? This is the analogy is given. Same thing is being repeated three times here. Yes, Mataji.
One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. Real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer. Super soul and soul are same and distinct. Achinta Bheda Bhed Tattva. Hare Krishna.
Achintya Bheda Abhed Tattva. That means it is same but different. And it is inconceivable to understand this fact. How something could be the same, yet in Ishopnishan it is mentioned that the Lord is far, but Lord is near. Apparently, there seems to be some kind of contradiction in this. Lord is sleeps, or Lord walks, but he does not walk. So there apparently there is some type of contradiction. But the fact remains that Lord is present everywhere. So he is far off, that is in Goloka Vrindavan, but he is present in each individual entity in heart as super soul. So this is Achinta. It is inconceivable contradiction, which is super soul and soul are same but distinct. Distinct means they are quite distinct in their characteristics. So now going to the first point, we have discussed two knowers, the individual knower and the supreme knower, who knows about the field of activity of everybody. Now, but there are, skeptics, there are philosophers, and there are Mayavadis who consider the soul and super soul are same. That is in total contradiction. We know, because Lord himself has proclaimed that I am present in your heart as soul and also present as super soul. So if somebody says that soul and super soul are same, then he does not have perfect knowledge. And these are the Mayavadis who say the God has no form. There is only just soul, and soul wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence. So real knowledge. Now there is a rope. The analogy is given here. There is a rope. If somebody says it is a snake, then it is just like that. The heart. He is not identifying the soul, the difference between the soul and super soul. Detailed description. So this is a picture given here. It is in fact a rope. But if one conceives it, thinks that it is, you can see in the central part is a shape of a snake is given. Now, but the rope is there. But by looking constantly at the rope, one thinks, no, it is not a rope, it is a snake. Then he is not in perfect knowledge. That means he is not able to distinguish between the soul and super soul. Yes, Mataji. Yes, Mataji.
One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purush, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. Analogy. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is the nature, and the enjoyer of nature is a living entity. And above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. Easel frame for holdings of such things as an artist's painting or a chalkboard.
Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So this material world, which is field of activity, is the nature. We know the Prakriti is who is the enjoyer of the Prakriti, the individual entity, as well living entity, as well as Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Supreme Personality of Godhead has created this material nature for his own pleasure, for his own enjoyment. But when living entity comes in contact with material nature, it wants to lord over the material nature and it wants to enjoy this material nature. It forgets that it is not created for him. But under influence of three modes of material nature, it gets contaminated and the soul forgets its relationship with Supreme Personality of Godhead, that it is a fragmented and the fragment must go to the whole. So instead of that, it starts getting the tendency to master over the material nature and also try to enjoy for self, senses also. And forgetting that it is for Lord Krishna's property, and it is Lord Krishna who, out of his own pleasure, has created this material nature. So analogy is given with the painter painting at the easel, and the same thing is given that the material nature is a painting, and the two persons are there, the enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer, and the individual enjoyer. This one also, Mataji, then someone else would like to read. Yes.
Shvetashvara Upanishad 1.12. Bhokta Bhogyam Paritaram Cha Matva Sarvam Proktam Trividham Brahman Etat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti, the field of activities, is Brahman. Jiva, individual soul, trying to control material nature, is also Brahman. The factual controller of both of them is also Brahman. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rajesh. So regarding this word, we have Brahma, Lord Brahma we know, and Brahman is something which we do not know about. Brahman, effulgence, we remember, we always talk about Brahman effulgence. So Brahman, concept of Brahman is first Brahman himself as the supreme controller. Second is individual. A living entity is also known as Brahman because he is the soul, which is known as the individual soul, is considered to be part of the Brahman. And third, the material nature is also Brahman. So there are three basically Brahmans. Brahman word is used in context of three. First, the Prakriti or the material nature. Second, individual soul. And third, Brahman himself, who is represented through the Brahman effulgence. Anybody else would like to read now?
Hare Krishna, may I?
Yeah, Mataji, please continue.
Okay. What is Brahman? Highest universal principle, ultimate or absolute reality, central concept in the Upanishads, ancient scriptures in Vedantic philosophy, that which never changes, knowledge and infinity. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So what is Brahman? If you remember that Brahman effulgence, we used to talk about absolute truth also. So that absolute truth, the ultimate or absolute reality or absolute truth, is also known as Brahman. It is the highest universal principle. Universal principle because it pervades through material nature, pervades through all living entities and soul, and he himself is a Brahman also entity. It is a central concept in Upanishads, ancient scriptures, Vedanta philosophy, and it never changes. It is absolute truth. Absolute truth should never change, we know, and it is infinite also. So this is the property of Brahman. Now, text 3 is being explained by Krishna in many ways so that we understand what are those 6 things which Purush, Prakriti, the Kshetra and Kshetragya, and the Jnanam, and the Geyam, the object of knowledge. Lord Krishna defines Kshetragya and yes, Mataji, read it.
Nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Lord Krishna defines Kshetrajna and Jnanam. Answer to 4 questions. Kshetra Jnana. There is also a second knower of all fields, the super soul. Answer to the 5th question. Jnanam. To understand body and its knowers, super soul and soul, is called knowledge.
Thank you, Mataji. So we can see that Lord Krishna, Kshetragya and Jnanam. So Kshetragya, there are 2 knowers, as I mentioned. One is individual knower and there is supreme knower. And supreme knower is present in the heart of each living entity as super soul. So Paramatma is the second knower or supreme knower. And the question, 5th question, what is Jnanam? Knowledge about the living entity or the field of activity, the soul and super soul. This is the Jnanam. One has what is the knowledge basically? Jnanam is to know about the individual field of activity or the body, the individual soul, and the super soul. This is the knowledge. So Kshetrajna knows about this, the Jnanam. Kshetra, Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the Supreme Knower, Kshetrajna knows about all the three aspects. Yes, knowledge.
Knowledge, jnana, to study the subject matter of the field of activity, and knower of the field very minutely. Kshetra is the field of activity, body. Two kinds of knowers, the super soul and individual soul. How Krishna is the knower. Super soul is the plenary expansion of Krishna. Krishna says, I am also the knower, but not the individual knower of the body. He is present in every body as the super knower.
So
Hare Krishna.
this is explanation here. There are two, as we mentioned, there are two kind of knower. One is individual knower and the other is supreme knower. Supreme knower, individual knower knows about the field of activity or body of his own only, whereas the supreme knower knows about all the bodies of all living entities, because therein he is present as in the heart as Paramatma or super soul. So he is a supreme knower. Yes, now this is the difference between soul and super soul. We in the level one also this kind of table was given, and I think some of points you might be remembering. Yes, Mataji, please read one by one. Soul and super soul. Point number 1, 2, 3, like this.
Soul and super different. Soul and the
Difference.
super soul. Living entities are known as Jivatma. God as maintainer is known as Paramatma.
So this is first definition. Individual is Jivatma and the Supreme Personality of God is Paramatma, who is present in our body as super soul. Yes.
The soul is a infinitesimally small. Size of the soul is 1 by 10,000 size of the tip of the hair. But the size of the super soul is infinite, Vibhu. The soul is cognizant of one's
Just a
own.
moment, Mataji. We'll take one by one. Individual soul is known as Anu, and Paramatma or super soul is known as Vibhu. Because individual soul size is given, it's very, very minute, very, very minute. It can't be seen even through microscope, you can't see it. But the super soul is transcendental and it is universal. So size of super soul is infinite. It can't be measured because it is transcendental Lord of Krishnas. So this is second difference. And in second chapter, also level 1, you must have remembered these terms. Anu Atma and Vibhu Atma. Vibhu Atma is Paramatma and Anu Atma is individual Atma. Yes, Mataji.
The soul is cognizant of one's own body, individual knower, but the super soul is the cognizant of everyone and everything, super knower.
Yeah, so we already have discussed that individual knows about its own field of activity of body. This is individual knower, and Lord knows about all bodies, all field of activities of all living entities. So he's super knower. Yes, ma'am.
The soul is secondary proprietor for one body, analogy citizen as the proprietor of one land. But the super soul is the supreme proprietor of all the bodies, analogy king is the proprietor of all lands.
Yes, Mataji, continue. This is explained many times.
Soul is the secondary controller of senses. Analogy, citizens are the secondary controllers of the activities. But the super soul is a supreme lord, is the supreme controller of senses. Rishikesha. Analogy, the king is the original controller of all activities. The
Yeah,
soul is
so we can see here that we consider ourselves to be the supreme enjoyer. We consider that we are supreme controller. It's not true. Supreme controller is only Krishna, present in our heart as super soul. And he's controlling our senses also. He's called Rishikesha. Rishikesha means one who has controlled his all senses. But Krishna is the origin of our senses, and he is also the controlling our senses. So he is supreme controller. But we are secondary controller. We are subordinate. He is the master. We are servant. Yes, Mataji. Fallible and infallible.
The soul is fallible. The super soul is infallible.
Yeah, this word was also discussed in level 1. Fallible means one who is that is subject to certain kind of changes and falls down from his transcendental position to material position. Infallible, Lord Krishna is said to be infallible. He is Achyuta. In Hindi, it is called Achyuta. He does not fall down from his position. Whenever Krishna comes to appears in this material world, his body is transcendental. Wherever body is subject to changes, it is material body. And second meaning of infallible is, firstly, when Krishna always remains, whether he appears here or is located in Goloka Vrindavan, situated there, he is always infallible. He is always transcendental. Whereas, and second meaning of infallible is that he never fails to protect his pure devotees. In the case of Arjuna, we can see how he is being guided to in the battlefield by Lord Krishna himself. So he loves his pure devotees, and he always never fails in. In case of Draupadi also, he is infallible because he never failed to protect his pure devotee. So whether it is Arjuna or the Gajendra or even Draupadi, so that is why Krishna is called infallible. Yes, Mataji.
The soul is a loving servitor, subordinate, but the super soul is eternally a loving master,
So,
superior.
yes, so that is very clear. We are servitor, and he is the master. So, in fact, we are part and parcel of him, but he is the whole. So that is the difference between two of us. Yes, Mataji.
The soul is innumerable living entities. Super soul is, though super soul is in the heart of every living entity and within every atom, still there is only one super soul. Hare Krishna.
So the super soul present in our heart, in the heart of the birds or animals, is same, but individual soul is different. And we know why individual soul is different, because it has got some contamination by three modes of material nature. That is why we are here in the material body. If the soul would not have had some kind of desires or unfulfilled desires, and if not, the living entity not have indulged into some kind of fruitive karmas, this body would not have been there. So each living entity has got a separate soul, whereas the super soul present in the heart of each living entity is just one, and it is Bhikhu. Yes. Mataji. So this is difference between the soul and super soul. Yes, Mataji, please continue. 13.4.
Tat kshetram yak cha yadrik cha yad vikari yatas cha yad. Sa cha yo yad prabhavas cha tat samasena me shrunu. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So in response to question number 1, Lord Krishna is now going to describe 5 points in coming. What are these 5 points? First point is how it is the field of activity is body. How this body is constituted. That means what makes this body. What is the composition of this body? Second, what its changes are. We know that our material body undergoes 6 kind of changes, or we can sometimes say that it undergoes 4 types of changes or 4 stages only. So these changes, Lord is going to tell whence it is produced, why it is produced, when it is produced or whence it is produced. We know that sense gratification and tendency to capacity to lord over material nature, these are 2 reasons why it is produced. And who that knower of the field of activities is. The knower, we already know there are 2 knowers, the individual knower and the supreme knower. And what his influences are. So Lord is going to describe these changes, 5 changes in subsequent verses. Yes, Pataji.
The Lord describes the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions, materials of which this body is made, the controller of the body. How does the body change? From where do the changes come? What are the causes of the changes? Ultimate goal of the individual soul. Actual form of the individual soul. Distinction between the individual living soul and the supersoul. One should never equate the supreme personality of Godhead in everybody with the individual soul, the jiva.
Thank
Hare
you. Okay,
Krishna.
so this is a broader summary of verse number 4. We just now saw that there are 5 things Lord has mentioned, and the explanation is this is a much detailed explanation of each one. Say for example, here it was mentioned what its changes are. Now they have elaborated how does the body change, where do the changes come, what the causes are, what are the causes of change. So the change has been changed in the body has been split into 3 aspects. Similarly, other aspects are also defined here. Yes, Mataji.
ऋषिभिर् बहुधा गीतं छन्दोभिर्विविध्य पार्थक् ब्रह्मसूत्र पदेश्चैव हेतु मद्भिर्विनिश्चित्य. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of the activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to the cause and effect.
So, thank you, Mataji. The same meaning is probably given here on the right hand side of this picture. So now we will remember earlier Krishna said, that is my opinion. You remember this was the verse 13.3. It was, that is my opinion. Krishna, we discussed that time yesterday that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the fountainhead of all the knowledge. All knowledge has come out from him only. But he is emphasizing that that is my opinion, that is authentic now. But here, now Krishna is giving detailed knowledge because he is the fountain of knowledge. He is now giving detailed knowledge of the questions which Arjuna had asked. So whenever we discussed this earlier also, then spiritual masters, sadhu and shastra, whatever they say, it is based on certain evidences. That whatever sadhu says or whatever spiritual master says, it is supported by shastras. So not only he has given his opinion, now he is going to support his opinion by quoting from different other scriptures and other places. And one of this is Vedanta Sutra. We know Vyasdev, Guru Vyasdev, he had written Vedanta Sutra. So now in support, Krishna, in support of his declaration or the detailed knowledge which he is going to impart, he is quoting from Vedic scriptures that what Vedanta says, that knowledge of the field of activities, of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings, especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Why this body is produced and what is the effect, that is what the body undergoes and what ultimately happens to this material body or the soul. This is all described in Vedanta Sutra and other also. So he is just confirming what other sages or what other scriptures have said about what the knowledge which he is going to impart to Arjuna. Yes, Mataji.
Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage. And in the Vedanta Sutra, duality of soul and super soul is perfectly explained. Vyasadeva's father, Parasara, is also a great sage. He writes, Aham Tvam Cha Tatanya, we, you, I, and various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. We are fallen into the ways of the 3 modes of material nature, according to our different karmas, goodness, patience, and ignorance. Some are on the higher nature, some are in the lower nature. The higher and the lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by 3 qualities of nature and is transcendental. A distinction between the soul and the supersoul and the body is also made in the original Vedas, especially in the Katha Upanishad. Of the many great sages who explain this, says Parasara is considered principal among them. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Mataji. So says Parashar, he was father of Vyasdeva Muni. And what he has said, he writes that Aham Tvam Cha Tathanye. That means I, you, I, and all living entities. They are represented in the form of, because they are existing because of certain, karma they have performed in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. That is why there is these three forms are existing: I, we, and all living entities. And I, in fact, is Supreme Personality of Godhead here. But why? Uh, some we know some have a higher birth, some are birds and animals, some are even trees. So why this has happened? Because of our karmas and our uh, unfulfilled desires and our karmas. Those two factors have determined our this next form of. So, and why it has happened? Why we have taken a birth, human, even human birth or the higher birth, the living entities include demigods also. So when they are talking about higher forms means demigods, because they also possess material bodies. They are also living entities. They also have a soul and also super soul, like us. But we are in a lower stage because we have contaminated soul. We are bound by three modes of material nature, and we want to lord over the nature, material nature, and we also want to enjoy our senses. So, but the super soul here is mentioned as it is infallible. It is beyond three modes of material nature. It is the source and controller and of the all senses and all the material nature or three modes of material nature. So it is infallible and it is uncontaminated by three qualities of nature, that is goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is transcendental. So distinction between soul, super soul, and the individual body has to be made. And this has been explained at length in not only Katha Upanishad, but also in Vedanta Sutra and other Vedas. Yes, Mataji. So we have seen the Lord is giving evidence from first he mentioned about Vedanta Sutra. Now what Parashar Muni has mentioned, he mentioned that thing, quoting Katha Upanishad, and now he's talking about Taittiriya Upanishad. Yes, Mataji.
According to the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.5, Brahma Pucham Prathistha is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy, known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms or life forms. Jnanamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Brahman realization, called Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and the supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all blissful nature. These are the five stages of Brahman realization called Brahma Pancham. But the first three, Anandamaya, involve the field of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called the Anandamaya.
So now Lord Krishna is giving evidence from Taittiriya Upanishad. In fact, the Upanishad has come out from him only. The origin is the author was Ved Vyas Muni, but who gave the knowledge to Ved Vyas Muni? Lord Krishna himself. So he is quoting Taittiriya Upanishad that Brahmapucham means the realization of Brahma is in three stages. That is, some have got Annamaya realization only, some has Pranamaya realization, some have Jnanamaya, some have Vijnanamaya, and some have Anandamaya also realization. So Brahman can be realized in three forms, 3 or 5 levels. So first is Annamaya. Now our body is also composed of these 5 layers. Similarly, there are lower animals where this body is composed of only one layer, that is Annamaya Kosh. And there are animals, elevated animals, who have got Annamaya and Pranamaya also. And there are animals who may have three levels, that is Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya also. And human beings have got this Vijnanmaya and Anandamaya Kosh. These are 5 sheets which make up our body. Now, all living entities have got this type of sheets. Some have got 1, some have got 2, some have got 3, and some have got 4 also. So what does this mean? So realization of Brahma can take place in 5 stages. First, 5 levels. The first is Annamaya Kosh. That means the consciousness for the food. That whenever, take the smallest form of animal or maybe an insect, whose consciousness is limited to Annamaya and Pranamaya. Because as soon as now he is always, the animal, lower animal is always hunting for food, because that is his realization of Brahman. And secondly, if you touch, then it immediately runs away from you. That means it is protecting its life force. It wants to live. So it wants this, that means awareness for food and saving one's own life or life force is also there. So Pranamaya course, first is Annamaya course. The consciousness is limited to food or sustenance. Second is Pranamaya course. We know that Pranamaya course means life force, and life force is breathing our. Then Jnanmaya course. Jnanmaya means that there is third dimension, and that is mind. So first was food, second was life force, and third is mind now. The 3 functions of mind are given here: thinking, willing, and feeling. These are 3 functions of mind. So just now categorize certain animals. Some animals are just living for the food level, or that is Annamaya consciousness. Some animals have got Annamaya and Pranamaya also. They want food and they want to protect their life also. And third stage is Jnanmaya. Jnanmaya means they have a mind also. Mind, function of mind is thinking, willing, and feeling. And the fourth stage is Vijnanamaya. They know that food consciousness, life force consciousness, and the mind thinking, willing, feeling. Beyond this, there is fourth dimension, and that is the soul. Is it okay? So first is Annamaya, food. Second is Pranamaya, that is life force or breathing. Third is mind, which has a function of thinking, feeling, and feeling. And fourth stage is stage one realizes that there is fourth dimension other than food, life force, and the mind, and that is called soul. So this is the Jnanmaya. Now with Jnanmaya, and then comes the Vijnanmaya. Then that means the soul and super knowledge of super soul and soul both are included in Vijnanmaya. And last stage of Brahma realization is Anandamaya. Thus, that eternal blissful state, that is the in fact final stage of realization, and eternal stage of blissfulness is part of super soul also. So Brahman realization is called Vijnanmaya, which living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. That is called Vijnan, that is soul. And in the final stage, Anandamaya, it is only super soul, because super soul is always transcendental. It is always Anumanta, Anudrashta, and eternally always detached and happy or in a blissful mood. So these are 5 stages of Brahman realization. 5 sheets of which the living entities' bodies are composed of, and the super soul or supreme lord is transcendental to all these 4 levels, that is Annamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanmaya, Vijnanmaya, and he is always supreme personality of God. He is always eternally blissful. We call Lord, Supreme Lord as Satchit Anand, eternal knowledge and always blissful. So Supreme Personality of Godhead present in our heart as super soul is blissful or Anandamaya stage. Now realization, our consciousness, just let us examine our own self. Our consciousness is limited to food. food limited to our saving ourselves. Are we conscious of soul or mind? Yes, we are conscious of our mind because we are thinking, feeling and willing also. But what about the soul? The Jnanmay realization is lacking in us. Sometimes only we realize that, no, we are not this body, we are not this. And in Krishna consciousness, by mercy of Srila Prabhupada, such simple analogies and simple explanation is given that we now understand that we are not this body, we are soul. And the supreme knowledge is that we are not only soul, we have super soul of Paramatma also present in our now. So this is called Brahma Pucham in Taittiriya Upanishad. This is defined. Is this point clear? These 5 sheets or 5 levels of Brahman realization? Any doubt about this, Mataji or Prabhuji's?
No, Prabhu.
No answer? Some doubt? Anything that is missing, please suggest. So this is called Brahman Pucham Pratishtha. We will move on to the next slide. Yes, Richa Jain Mataji, please continue.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vedanta Sutra describes the Supreme as Anand Mayu Bhyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expends into Vigyanmaya, Pranmaya, Gyanmaya, and Anmaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and the different from him is the Anandamaya. If the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities.
So, as I mentioned just now, Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in our heart as Super Soul, and he is always transcendentally blissful. He, for his own enjoyment, he created the remaining 4 sheets or 4 releases, that is Vigyanmaya, Gyanmaya, Pranmaya, and Annamaya. He, for his own pleasure, he created this thing. And for his own pleasure, he created the material nature also, the Prakriti, to enjoy. So, the field of activities, living entities considered to be the enjoyer. Living entity considers himself to be the enjoyer, whereas he is not, because Lord has created everything for his own enjoyment. So we work for Krishna's pleasure. That is, we dovetail our activities with Anandamaya, that is Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Paramatma, then our life becomes perfect. What does it mean? It means that all activities that we perform in our day-to-day life, if they are dovetailed, they are connected with Krishna, they are performed in relation to Krishna, then we are serving Anandamayas. We can have the blissful nature, or we can have the realization of Anandamaya Kosh in ourselves also. So then our life becomes perfect. So this is very important sentence here. If the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandmaya, dovetailing means coupling or joining or making a relationship. So if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandmaya, then he becomes perfect. So all activities performed by living entities in relation to Krishna or in relation to Anandmaya, who is Paramatma form in our heart, then life becomes perfect. This is the real picture of Supreme Lord as the Supreme Lord. So Lord, we are individual knower of our own field of activity, and Lord is the supreme knower of the field of activities of all living entities. Yes, Mataji, please continue.
Manifestations of the Supreme Lord's energy, the 5 stages of Brahman realization, Brahma Pacham. Anmaya, dependence upon food for existence, a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Pranmaya, after realizing the supreme absolute truth in food, one can realize absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. Gyanmaya, realization extends beyond the living substance symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Vigyanmaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. Anandamaya, the supreme stage of all blissful nature.
So this is again the same realization is described in different words. So realization remains the same. Annamaya, food. Pranamaya, life force or living symptoms. Then Jnanamaya is mind, thinking, willing, and feeling. And the Vijnanmaya is the soul, and Anandamaya is super soul or Paramatma form. So this is a pictorial description how this Annamaya Kosh is the outermost physical body. Pranamaya Kosh is the living force or the energy body which makes us do certain activities and live. Manomaya Kosh, which is emotional body. Manomaya is also known as Gyanmaya because Gyan, mind has got this function. Emotion is a function of mind. Then Vijnanmaya is the wisdom body, which is in fact in the form of knowledge that I am soul, not the body. And Anandamaya is, of course, the innermost picture that is Lord present in our heart as Paramatma. So these are 5 layers of 5 koshas also. Brahma Krishna Pratishtha is also the same thing, or realization of Brahman in 5 stages. That is also same thing as I mentioned. So the lowest is Anandamaya realization, and after Anandamaya, Pranmaya. After Pranmaya comes the Jnanmaya, and then Vijnanmaya, and thereafter comes the supreme stage, that is Anandamaya, that is super soul present in our heart as supreme personality of Godhead. Yes, please read this one.
In the phenomenal manifestation, there are 3 stages: the stage of consciousness, the stage of semi-consciousness and dreaming, and the stage of unconsciousness. But your lordship is transcendental to all these different material stages of existence. You exist, therefore, in a 4th dimension, and your appearance and disappearance do not depend on anything beyond yourself. You are the supreme cause of everything, but of you there is no cause. You yourself cause your own appearance and disappearance. Despite your transcendental position, my lord, in order to show your 6 opulences and advertise your transcendental qualities, you have appeared in your different incarnations: fish, tortoise, boar, Narsimha, Keshava, and others, by your personal manifestation, and you have appeared as different living entities by your separated manifestations. By your eternal potency, you appear as the different incarnations of Vishnu. And by your external potency, you appear as a phenomenal world. Krishna book.
So this is a wonderful book. All the pastimes of Krishna are given Krishna book. I will recommend that please all of you must have one copy. It is so beautiful, right from the birth or even before the birth or appearance, rather not birth, the appearance of Lord Krishna, to all kind of demons who were killed by him, and so many other pastimes with, like that Govardhan Leela and Damodar Leela, and all those are described beautifully in this book. So this is a quotation from, this extract has been taken from Krishna book. Now, this is a prayer to Lord Krishna. Now, in phenomenal world, we have 3 stages. Either we are fully conscious, we are semi-conscious, or we are unconscious state. So conscious, all of us, we are in a conscious state. When we are sleeping, we are semi-conscious because the thought process and the activities which have taken place during daytime, they keep on circulating in our mind. And there is unconscious state when mind is totally deprived of all kind of activities or thoughts or emotions or any kind of processes. But Lord Krishna has a 4th dimension. He's he's neither of these three. This is for material people only. And fourth dimension is that he's the cause of all causes. He's Achint Abhed Abheda. That means Tattva. That is means that he's contradictory. He's present here, but he's not present here. He walks, but he does not walk. He sleeps, but he does not sleep. So Krishna has got a totally fourth dimension. And in praise of Krishna, all these things are mentioned here, that you are the supreme cause of everything. You are cause of all causes, but for you, there is no cause. Because you are Adi Purush. There was no reason for you to appear. But we have a cause. That is why we have appeared, we have taken birth in this material body. Lord Krishna has no cause. And you and yourself cause your own appearance. Krishna says that Yada Yada Hi Dharma says he appears millennium after millennium whenever there is decline in religion and there is growth, increase in irreligious practices. So he decides himself when to appear and when to disappear also. After Kurukshetra war, he disappeared. Despite your transcendental position, my Lord, in order to show 6 opulences and address your transcendental qualities, you have appeared in your different incarnation. We know we have, in the beginning of this class, we went through Dash avatars. Because he willed and to appear in a certain form, and he for a particular mission, and he accomplished it, and then he disappeared. So this is a prayer from Krishna book. It is a beautiful book. Please do get it online available. By your interpretation, you appear as different incarnation of Vishnu, and by your external you have created all this material world. So we will stop here. This is a slightly detailed explanation. Many slides are given. We will stop here. Any doubts or questions or addition, correction, observation, please mention so that we may continue. Yes, Prabha Mataji, Pratibha Mataji would like to add something which I have missed. Pankaj Dubey, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, am I audible?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Any doubt or anything which you would like to know, which I might have missed so far?
No, Prabhuji.
Any Mataji's? Any correction or observation? So Prabha Mataji, Srila Mataji, you did not speak today. I did not notice that you. Hare Krishna, Srila Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Today, today I have listened only.
Okay. So it seems very complicated, but it is very simply explained by Srila Prabhupada. He has made so complex issue. If you read Bhagavad Gita without puppet or by Srila Prabhupada, very little comes into our mind. But here we can understand everything. So Arjuna's first question is being dealt in the entire chapter 30. Now he will talk about knowledge, the process of knowledge, and what is going to be the outcome knowledge. And the 5 questions which you mentioned here, you can see the 5 questions which he said, the changes, those are going to be described by Lord Krishna in details. So these 5 things are how it is constituted. This will still yet to come. What are the changes which undergoes this field of activity or the human body or body of the living entity? Yesterday there was a shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Dehinu asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tadantar tatha tadantar dehant praptir that here, not what was it? The wise person does not get perturbed or does not get bewildered by these changes. That is in the Sanskrit word I'm just forgetting. So these changes, 5 changes, 6 changes which body undergoes, then when it is produced, what are the factors which lead to production of this field of activity? Who that knower of the field of activity is, and what the influences. So these questions are yet to be answered. We have covered verse number 6 only so far. No, rather 5 only. So we'll continue. We shall have to be slightly rapid from tomorrow onwards. So this is verse number 6 and 7. We'll continue with it. Attendance link is posted. Dhiras tat namuhite. That is the word, the Sanskrit word. Dhira, person who is dhira, who is equiposed, who is not disturbed by opposite contradictory situations. Dhiras tatra namuhyate. He is not bewildered by these kind of changes. He knows that I am not the body, I am the soul. So that the body undergoes changes. He is not dhira. A person who is dhira or person who is intelligent or is not bewildered, is not bewildered by these changes. So this will be covered tomorrow. So please fill in the attendance. I have posted the link. I shall post it again. There being no question, Mataji, you may say closing prayer. And next tomorrow I'll request some other Mataji to sing the opening prayers. I hope please come prepared. Some of you already know it, but hesitant to speak. So please recite the. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, the Krishna book which you said, is it the same in Hindi, the Krishna Leela Purushottam Bhagwan?
I don't know the Hindi name, but it is Krishna only. I've got the copy. It's not on my table. I'll show you tomorrow. Krishna.
Okay.
It is just Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji.
So please say the last closing prayers. Then Prabhu Mataji would like to say. Okay, I'll say. Vancha kalp tarubhyascha kripa sindhuva evacha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namah. Anant Kot Vaishnav ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Thank you, Prabhuji and Mataji, for your association this evening and attending the class. Hare Krishna and Dandavat Pranam to all of you. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Mataji.